What's up, everybody? We are back. Now, you may have realized or noticed that it's been a few weeks since we've posted a podcast episode, and that's because we've been doing a lot of things behind the scenes, and there's so much that's happening in the world today in terms of entertainment, social media, and yeah, so we've got a lot of things to uncover, and Gordon and I want to share our opinions and our perspective on some of the things that have been happening. But I wanted to first give you a quick little update to let you know about some of the things that I've been doing and part of the reason why I've been so busy. It's been a lot of really good changes, and I think this is a perfect example of be careful what you wish for, because as things start to kind of morph into this new world, this basically, long story short, I've been doing a lot of work with this company called Vivo Barefoot, which is a company I've been involved with since early 2009. And for the first few years, I had been just a certified Vivo Barefoot coach, which entails everything from like how to do barefoot running properly and how to have proper posture and what that means to kind of live like a minimal lifestyle through barefoot and actually allowing your feet to move naturally. And so I was doing that for a while, and now I'm actually working for the company on a part-time basis. And part of my role, or the big bulk of my role, is I'm doing outreach for health pros, people that are like doctors and physical therapists and podiatrists and biohackers like myself. And so what I'm doing is trying to reach out to bring some of these people into the community so that we can bring more awareness to this idea of foot health and how important it is in our lives. I've been doing a lot of that work. Many of you have probably noticed that I've been posting a lot more content around the foot health conversation and also all things Vivo Barefoot. And I continue to research and to uncover some things. In fact, I'm happy to say that Vivo Barefoot is now come out with a grounding shoe. And so if you're unfamiliar with grounding and what that means, grounding or earthing, then stay tuned because I'll be doing a lot more conversations and content around that. But it's been pretty cool because I've been on the inside scoop and some of the inner workings of what it is to create a shoe like this. And so I've had the great fortune of being able to go out and test what it's like to reduce inflammation and to stabilize the electrical workings in our body, because we are electrical beings. And so that's been really fascinating. I've realized that there's a lot more to the conversation than what's been talked about. And then if you pair that with a natural shoe or a natural footwear company, then I think it's kind of like the best of both worlds. So we're going to be doing a lot of conversations around that. And I've been in and out of Toronto, which I'm currently in Toronto right now. And this week is going to wrap up my last bit of work here in Toronto. So I've been working with my buddy Oscar Isaac. Many of you know that I work with Oscar Isaac. He's a great friend. He's like a brother to me, and he's been working on a film here in Toronto. And I've been here since February, just kind of bouncing in and out. It's been quite fun. I really look forward to seeing some of this content when it comes out, because this is an incredible movie. Don't want to say too much about it right now, but I will say that for the first time in a long time, Oscar and I both realized that he finally has gotten to where he wants to be in terms of his body and his mentality, his mind. It's been really, really fascinating. So I actually just came back from set and I wanted to hop on. We were supposed to be doing a podcast with a doctor, and that kind of got pushed off and postponed. Gordon and I decided, well, let's do a SWTT reacts. So we're going to react to some of the things that have been happening in media right now. And if you have your hand on the pulse, your finger on the pulse, you probably already know what we're going to be talking about. Yeah, Gordon, you ready to jump into this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So one of the first things I think we mentioned we want to talk about is something that's been in the news for quite some time, and that is this controversy or this idea around Diddy. right? Did he do it? Did he not do it? Yeah, did he done it? That's right. Did he do it? Did he done it? So let's start there. What is your take on all this, Gordon?
So I kind of got in this late. We did an earlier episode, reacts around the Cat Williams coming on, Love Shay Shay, and then I watched Monique later. And bottom line is, whether you come into this early or late, I have some friends who come into it sort of late themselves, and I briefed them. And at this point, it's pretty overwhelming to just say, Diddy is extremely exposed on a lot of levels. Obviously, a lot of people know now Miami. I think it was DHS. I forget who raided his exact homes, but it was heavy duty, heavily armored men coming in. And the most recent thing is the Cassie footage that is 5-6 years older. It's past statute of limitations.
2016.
Yeah. So, it's 8 years old, but bottom line is it's we kind of start pulling up here to show people some visual things. So when referring to that, this is the famous footage that just came out, and obviously censorship warning. A lot of people have already seen it, but clearly you see at this point that the true character he is, and I think that this is the larger, and this kind of is some harder stuff to watch, and you don't have to watch obviously, but I think it is kind of important also to watch it if you can handle it, because a lot of people are waking up to a lot of their idols being kind of exposed. Yeah, and I'm, we were joking about before we started rolling that, Cat Williams called this. He said this was going to be 2024 was going to be the year of exposure. I think he didn't just say that flippantly. I think he has a large body of evidence and receipts, as he says, about these going-ons. I said, I please call me to the court, put me in front of a judge, and I'll be happy to provide what I have, type thing. But at this point, clearly other authorities have taken things into their own hands. No, I think Diddy's one element, but another key thing we touched on that's important is Diddy the final cog in this sort of machine, or is he just one piece of a larger machine essentially? And when you really dig into this, I really like to dive deep on things and follow the money and follow, go as far deep as I can to the root of a lot of this. Diddy really is kind of just, in a lot of ways, a pimp. A fucked up sexual predator pimp, but an Epstein-like figure in Hollywood. And a lot of his role was essentially putting people in compromising situations, as well as he's had his own traumatic past. And I'll throw it back to you, but this is connected to a lot of things that are coming out now, and we won't create too many tangents, but it is slightly starting to connect to the Kendrick and Drake beef and battle that's been going on, and Drake's got some shady fingers and allegations being pointed to him now, as well as being involved in some of these predatory and sexual, Kendrick literally posted a picture in Ali Gus. It's the house, and that's showing an image of when you're a sexual predator on a map, you get those pins, and that's literally what is all over Kendrick's house. So he's saying, and now there's coming out more evidence that Drake is has these type of predatory inclinations as well. Certain things are alleged, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
this is
so here's my thoughts on so the clip that you showed with Diddy running down the hallway. You see Cassie is at the elevator door.
Right.
That one I feel like is important to touch on, even just for a moment, because people have probably seen that already. If you haven't seen it, we just showed it, so feel free to go back and watch it. It's definitely, be forewarned, because it's not something easy to see, especially when you see a larger man taking advantage of a smaller female. It's just gross, to be honest with you. But what I think is very, very important about that, or I should say, and what's very important about that is, imagine being in her shoes. So apparently, and this is, I can't verify this, but this is what was I guess came out as part of the case, is that Diddy had given her a black eye, right? So he must have hit her in some way, gave her a black eye, and then apparently he was intoxicated. She tries to sneak out, right? Because she's kind of done with it. She tries to sneak out, gets all the way to the elevator, waiting for the elevator to come. And then the next clip, you see Diddy running out in just a towel.
Yeah.
because he realized that she escaped, right? So that, I mean, that's wild. Now, and then imagine being Cassie. You think, okay, you're right there. You're seconds away from getting away, and then you get tackled and hit. And if you watch the video closely, he swings at her, pulls her down, and then tries to kick her and misses, and then he stomps on her. And
Yeah.
it's just like,
And he
whoa.
drags her
Yeah, and then
by
drags
her
her.
hairs or her, back to the room. I mean, and what's so, I'll let you keep ripping, but what's so disturbing about all this when you really start to uncover this, and this is something that really, I don't want to get too macro here, but you really do. I've researched, you see there's case studies of this in politics and finance and all these power centers, and in a lot of these places where people are very much focused around ego and power and control. But so many people turned a blind eye to this, and so many other people like him for years, right? It's, the Harvey Weinstein situation, it's the Bill Cosby situation, it's these, once again, a lot of people don't want to believe it because of cognitive dissonance. They don't want it to be true psychologically, because then they have to accept that, like, I looked up to this guy, I put him on a pedestal, I show my kids to him as an icon, I listen to his songs and met my wife to it, whatever it is. But that is so important for whether it's your own personal health optimization or as a collective. We've got to be able to look at these things, process them, purge them, take accountability, and move forward, or else they will continue to happen. And so many people enable this because they just like, I don't want to lose my job, or like, I don't want to get uninvited to the cool kids party, and it's just like, we need courage, people, now more than ever, because we're at this pivotal point in these late stages where key people can step up to really affect the trajectory of us in a lot of ways. But that's why, I mean, I'll throw it back to you, but that's why I have so much respect for Cat Williams and Monique and Chappelle and these people who are being like, no, fuck this. I'm
Yep.
not going to go along with this. Whether it's wearing the dress or being a part of allowing yourself to be exploited by somebody more powerful than you to get a role or an album or whatever, the carrot they dangle in front of you, it's fuck. And then in other situations, it's just straight up pure predatory exploitation, like a Justin Bieber situation with Diddy, where you see the before and after video of him when he's a bright, innocent kid going to Diddy's house, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to spend time with Bieber. I got him this new car. I'm going to, try to get conservatorship like I did with Usher. And then you hear Usher talking about his experience on Howard Stern and be like, yeah, I stayed at his house for like a couple summers in New York and some crazy shit went down. And like,
Yep.
and it's just like,
Yep.
dude, what the fuck? When you really,
Yeah, it's the thing that I think is worth mentioning is the Diddy is okay. Let me back up. So 50 Cent, we know 50 is sort of like arch nemesis with
I love
Diddy,
50.
right? And so 50 is really great at trolling. He's really good at putting things out there, similar to Cat Williams, but 50 has been doing this for a long
Follow his
time,
IG.
right?
Just follow his IG.
Yeah. Go to his IG, you'll see. And what's crazy is that people kind of think that he's joking and whatever, and then things come out and it's like, whoa. And so I saw he posted the other day, 50 did, on his page. He said, he put an image up like, I don't know who is running the sort of the PR campaign for Diddy, but this ain't it. And basically it was a video of Diddy trying to apologize.
Oh yeah.
And right. And what's crazy about that is like that whole thing is played out, bro. Like it's so played out because like, first of all, he doesn't even address Cassie. He doesn't, right? And like he's all about like, oh, this is bad for me and my image and this and that. And I'm like, I'm trying to do better. But he doesn't even mention the fact that like Cassie has to also relive that. You know what I mean? Like she has to relive that. And, what about her apology? What about, all the things that she was saying? He was trying to make her look like she was crazy. Yet here it is. Which one is it? Is this his IG?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm sure he didn't take it down.
Giving people just a preview of his IG. I don't know which.
Yeah, it should have been up there pretty recent. But anyway, long story short, I think a lot of people have seen this.
You've got the
video
coming out. I mean, on Netflix. So that's the big thing here. A day ago.
Oh, I watched the downfall of Diddy on Tubi. Did you watch that?
No, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, that's worth the watch. And again, I definitely want to state that I'm not a person that wants to be involved in kicking someone while they're down. However, as you pointed out, like this is something that we need to be aware of because these are things that are happening in the entertainment world in which I'm also a part of, right? I'm in a
Right.
part of this entertainment world. And if I felt or knew some of these things were going on, like in my world, I would feel compelled to have to say something or do something, especially after seeing all of this, because this is wild,
Yeah.
wild what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, it's hopefully the beginning of an unraveling of a lot of this. We'll give just some other quick, cool, well, not cool, but interesting insights into what's going on with as far as this subject and story matter. Um, Shout out to Trinity, YouTube channel. I love her stuff. She does a great job of breaking down like sort of the best sort of independent journalists and updates on various elements of this story. Um, a big person, we're just gonna, keep it real here and name names, but a big person involved in this is this guy named Lucian Grange, who's the CEO of Universal Music Group. He has been named in the Diddy lawsuit. He has been known to go to Diddy's parties and be a big part of the sponsorship. The allegations are that he and Diddy actually might have had a, consensual sexual relationship as well, allegedly. But bottom line is these parties, they're drugging attendees with bottles and Ciroc and tequila using his own vodka. I mean, just the level of depravity knows no bounds. Of course, they're going to always, allegedly dismiss these lawsuits. Candace Owens went deep on this. Then there's a big falling out between her and everything happening there. I mean, these are very powerful people we're talking about. I mean, this guy was literally getting knighted by Prince William. So it's Sir Lucian Grange. So when you really follow these things, it goes about as high as it goes. I mean, these are the people running major record labels, and then people behind them we don't know as far as the people behind the labels. I don't know. It's usually never good when there's smoke, there's fire. Like if they're unaware of this, it'd be kind of crazy. So
I think this is
Go ahead.
I think this is a good segue into like this next piece that we want to talk about which is like Drake and Kendrick, right? Because the two things that diverge, so to speak, is that you don't really see a lot of high profile celebrities coming to the defense of Diddy, nor do you see a lot of high profile artists coming to the aid of Drake. And I think that speaks volumes. I think it says a lot because on the one hand, I think Diddy was able to get away with a lot of the stuff that he was doing because he apparently filmed everything. So I think he has lots of people on record, right, on film, and I think he's been dangling that over their head, which is probably why they don't come out with anything. That's why they don't say anything. And then the whole thing with Drake, I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know why or how, but like it's really shocking that nobody is really defending him despite all of the collaborations and all the things he's done to help to kind of raise the name and the brand of other artists, because he collabs a lot. People aren't talking about him. They're not coming to his defense.
No, I mean, and have you heard Not Like Us yet?
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, so I mean, I was trying to pull up the lyrics here but bottom line though, I mean, yeah, like we can't play because of copyright, but like if you just look at the lyrics here, I mean, people remembering, go listen to the track. But bottom line, I mean, he's saying not like us because we're not sexual predators, we're not pedophiles. That's like the not like us is that's basically. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but basically he's saying like these people, Drake and others, but mainly he's calling out Drake, are into this weird stuff. I mean, basically they're into younger age women and younger age men. It's a power control thing. You know, who knows? I'm trying to understand the psychological side of it, but like this is going on. And two with Trinity, allegedly, but she really touches in on Jay-Z and his early relationship with, I believe, Aaliyah or Cassie, I forget who he dated, because it was Aaliyah or something. One of the artists early on, and he's just like allegedly Jay-Z and Diddy, Jay-Z might be even higher up than Diddy, but playing a similar role. So like that's a a tougher one as far as like credence and evidence, but just watch Trinity, saying like there's some serious people involved. And once again, like how you see people react to them and distance themselves is a big part of it as you're talking to, and who comes to their age and whatnot. Right here is a key line, though, just real quick while I'm showing the lyrics. Say, Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1, because we obviously know what happens to pedophiles in prison. So any bitch that talked to him, they loved hide your little sister from him. They tell me Chubbs don't want to get your hands me downs and party at the party playing with his nose now. I don't know exactly, it's some insider thing, but I think it deals with this.
Playing with his nose, I think that might be referring to either cocaine or facial reconstruction, because he was claiming that.
Okay. And then Baca got a weird case. Well, I don't know that, if you know that. But here, it's incredible. Certified lover boy, ? Certified pedophiles. So like, I mean, fucking, and so, I mean, this shit, I've been on this shit for only, once I started down my journey like 5-10 years ago, but like this came across my radar, and was, of course, at the time, like I was skeptical, and everyone was like, this is conspiracy theory, like, but this idea of like, is there an actual human trafficking network, that is connected to high levels, in various industries, and not to make this a left or right thing, because it should not be, but you watch like the film Sound of Freedom, or you follow the people involved with that organization and what they do to help free kids from human trafficking and sex trafficking. Like, it's a massive, huge industry that is very real, that exists on our planet, that is billions of dollars every year, that is just, it's like, once again, I know this is tough to maybe process and think that certain people involved with it, whether it's political positions or musical leaders or actors or whoever, but the reality is we have to accept this and move forward. And right now is the hardest part. I've already kind of processed it, I think, but for a lot of people, I get it. This is the hardest part, though. This is going to be the hardest part, where you're really like having to accept it and going through those, stages of grief, because, we don't want this to be true, but we also can't live in, naivety. We can't just, but
we shouldn't turn a blind eye to some of the things. And of course, right, like, you can put your head in the sand and pretend like nothing is happening, but it affects all of us. I mean, it really does. It affects us in a major way. And I think once we start to process it a little bit more, it's a little bit more understandable to see why certain people may react to certain things in their own way.
Yeah.
Because you never really know what someone's dealing with, right? So like, many of us may have talked shit about Justin Bieber whenever he was going through his things, like, it's yet another young superstar who got lost in drugs. But now, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, dude, that's a really good point. I mean, so many of these young childhood stars, Britney Spears, the I Love Amanda girl, Amanda Bynes, we know with Dan Snyder now, Nickelodeon. Once again, another thing that I had friends in the entertainment business, and I had other people tell me about this, are pretty legitimate, but like, and having worked in LA, working on like commercials, digital commercials, and we'd sometimes do ones with kids for like toys and products, seeing how the parents would treat the kids, seeing how they care more about, their own treatment and where's her lunch and this kind of stuff, versus like, hey, it's a kid, let them live, and just, aren't you being you're treating them like an adult here? Just seeing those elements and just seeing the lack of like, once you watch, highly recommend everyone see Behind the,
I think it's called the
HBO series.
About the Nickelodeon one?
Yeah,
Quiet on Set.
Quiet
right?
on Set. Yeah.
Quiet on Set. So what's interesting about that is, so I watched that, and I actually watched that while I was on set, which is kind of ironic. But what's interesting about that is, if you, so depending on how old you are, whomever's watching this, I remember growing up being a huge fan of Nickelodeon, and I loved it, right? And what's crazy about that is, if you go back and look at some of the shows, and at least if you watch this documentary, they show clips of the different shows that they were producing, and all of them had these sexual undertones.
Yeah. Like, so glaringly obvious when they give the examples, and you look at it later as an adult, and you're like, yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I was like, whoa, like who was it? Ariana Grande.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah.
Like,
Showing her
I
on the
mean, she had.
couch and like showing shots of like mayonnaise hitting her face, just like shit that was so overtly like, dude.
And how about the time when the guy, I forget his name, the main dude, um, he was in the hot tub with the girl. Like, what's the point of that, man?
Yeah, and Diddy was on that one of the episodes. They show that. I
Of
don't know if you
course.
saw it, but Diddy was there's an episode he appears and he's telling them to put a helicopter in the kid's pants to wake him up.
Come on, man.
Like,
Come on.
so it's
Come on,
just
man.
none of this shit ages well. And once again, like at this point, people really like when you really look into it, it's the evidence becoming so overwhelming that it's more about psychologically, like, hey, just it's really glaringly overwhelming when you just put it all together and yeah, continue. But just yeah, I mean, what that's your kids. I mean, it's just like
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
could be done so much better. I mean, I mean, every angle could be better. We'd be getting better content for our kids and adults. We'd be, changing the industry to be more focused on celebrating the creative and not, a lot of this is used in such exploitative ways. I mean, that's the key. This is all part of this sort of mafioso way the entertainment leverages. It's all blackmail. I mean, this is the casting couch. They use that as blackmail. So if you go and say this happened, well, then you're never going to work in this town again. I mean, it's all just fucked up manipulative tactics. The only people benefit from this are the producers, the heavy hitters, the money guys. A lot of times, the people they bring the actress over to, and so it's always just think about this on the grand scale. It's always the little guys who are getting hurt in all this. The people on set, the actors, the parents connected, and that's the case with all these industries. Politics, entertainment, music, finance, it's very similar. And so that's why I'll just say like this is a playbook.
That's
And,
right.
and that's what's happening is you're seeing this playbook being used again and again. So if we can expose the playbook and expose these key power players that allow the playbook to be executed and enacted, then that's where you just got to deal with it. The rest will eventually unwind. People will but you got to go to the root. And yeah, we'll kind of wrap there, but I would definitely say recommend check out Trinity, check out the HBO docs. We'll continue to just keep on this because it's interesting, and we do feel it matters more than people realize. And yeah, man, I'm so glad for Kendrick and Drake and Monique and these people and Chappelle and these people who are stepping up, because that's what it takes. You need somebody first to be like, no, this is true. And here's evidence.
Yeah. So I think possibly on a more lighter note, because obviously the goal of this podcast is sort of a culmination of many things, and this one is lumped into that react situation. So we do like to give our opinions and our perspective and what we feel from this, because at the end of the day, it does affect our overall health and wellness. So I think that's important. It's also important to point that out, because if you're a person that's new to this podcast, you might be like, well, wait a minute, this guy's a trainer, like what? But it does have a lot to do with mental health and mental wellness. And so I want to keep that as a kind of a focus. So segueing into the next piece that we want to talk about is the Terrence Howard bit. You guys that are listening, you might not be a big fan of Joe Rogan. You may not listen to his show or watch his show as often as I do, or as often as Gordon does. There was a recent episode on Joe Rogan's podcast with Terrence Howard, and I actually did a movie with Terrence Howard back in the day, which is pretty cool. And so I got a chance to meet him and work with him. And this was when I was in my acting days, first in New York, and I had a small role. It was nothing crazy, but what was cool is throughout the years, anytime Terrence Howard came on to social media or whatever, I was always kind of like, hey, like I'm going to keep an ear open to what he's talking about. And I realized that like after, what was that TV show that he did? Not Power. What was it called?
He might have been on.
Was it? Power. It wasn't Power. No, it was Lucian. His name was Lucian.
Okay, yeah,
it was the family, right? Like it was people who are watching this are probably like, you know, Lion. What's it? Let me see. Hold on. Also, Flow was really good. Empire.
Empire.
Yeah. So, um, uh, like since Empire, I hadn't really seen much of him, and I was just like, okay, what's going on? And then I saw a random clip in which Terrence Howard was on like a talk show, and he was talking about how we in modern society have mathematics all messed up. And I was like, hmm, okay, let me listen a little bit more about what he's saying. So I started following that trail, going down that rabbit hole, and I started to realize that people were debunking what he was saying. And when I see people debunking stuff, I quickly go, let me look a little bit deeper, right? And there was not much talk about it. I guess the powers that be had hoped that that conversation would go away, yet it didn't. And so you won't see him on many like mainstream podcasts because people just don't want to deal with it. But when he gets on Joe Rogan, he can kind of say whatever he wants to say. Come to find out, this dude has some very, very, very interesting thoughts and concepts. In fact, I think he has 98 patents,
Yeah.
97 patents.
Yeah.
And what he's building and I mean, it's like just open your mind and watch that episode. I wouldn't even say just listen to the episode. I would say open your mind and watch that Joe Rogan episode with Terrence Howard. And I promise you, you'll probably do what I did, which I text you immediately. I wasn't even finished, right? But I text you and I said, this is literally blowing my mind. It's incredible, man.
I mean, there's a great comment I saw on I think it was the episode, and I was like, this was the longest let him cook moment I've ever seen. Where he was just, no matter what you believe, he, like you said, that's what's beautiful about Rogan is he was allowed to really speak his truth and give his 2 cents. And Rogan was generally interested and curious, and you never really know if Rogan believes you or not. But I mean, Rogan even kind of said it is like, if you're right, this has massive implications,
Yeah.
and they touch on a lot. From rebuilding Saturn without gravity to his Neil deGrasse Tyson shunning his research to the Flower of Life being all wrong, him wanting to rewrite the periodic table, and as well as reverse aging. He was doing things with the drops and things.
How about this? There are no straight lines in nature.
Right.
I don't know if you caught that, but like that to me is very interesting. And it could be conspiracy. I don't know. I want to look more into it. I want to see what people say because he like straight up said, I'm willing to debate anybody, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's do it. But he basically said that the straight lines were created to justify a cross.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I'm sure because I'm trying to remember all the key things, but yeah, I mean, he makes his key case, and he's kind of touching on it here. The video we're showing with the Flower of Life, but essentially that because the church's influence at that time was so heavy, I guess, on Newton, right? He said it was Isaac Newton, and when it was establishing Newtonian or Euclid, I'm trying to think of, like Euclidean geometry, who was the first establishing linear geometry, I guess, right? It was what he had beef with.
yeah.
And I think he had issues with Newton, but it's a strong case. I mean, and I don't know enough about some of the technical side to be like, I don't know. And clearly, like, you can point to like, well, some of, clearly Newton and Einstein and these things do work though, as far as like practicality and pragmatics. Like we can use them for, for all types of things. But
so does his.
Well, that's
right.
What thing. Well, okay, and that's the thing is like we haven't seen his version, and it's not like both versions couldn't maybe work, but his is maybe more closer to how the universe works, and ours is more synthetic, but it's a synthetic but works type thing. But what's unique about him that I do really find that I've done my own really deep dive on is Tesla, and when he speaks about Nikola Tesla and the ether, I really have always, and I've spoken with various people who have similar theories to his. It's called like the electric universe theory. It's kind of this idea of everything is just electromagnetics, and there's no weak force or nuclear force. There's no gravity. It's really just all electric and magnetics, which is essentially what he's arguing, I believe. And those electromagnetics can form just specific geometries, and you can do a lot with that understanding. But I do think Tesla was very much onto something and way ahead of his time. And when you look at the history of John Piermont Morgan and the financiers who worked with him, clearly they did not like where it was going, where it was abundance of energy without the ability to really monetize and put a meter on it. So when Tesla says, think in terms of frequency, energy, and vibration, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, I think Howard's on that same path and picking up where he left off. And other zero point or free energy inventors have as well. And there's there's plenty of great documentaries that deal with looking at the history and research of what's called sort of zero point energy, basically pulling energy from the ether, which is what Tesla was talking about. And I think it was either Y Files. I think they did a recent one I highly recommend. It's a YouTube channel talking about this. I can pull up, but let me pull it up. But I'll throw it back to you, but there's so much history when you really look into this and suppression of these kind of things. So that I'm very in that camp that like, yeah, I strongly believe that happens and is happening. And they put national security patents on things when they have like solar panel cells that can do more than 20% retention, or hydrolysis that can allow cars to be powered by water. Tesla like inventions that use magnetics and what are called creating over unity, where more energy is created than put in. So I'll throw it back to you, but like this exists, but it's hard once again to prove it. And I can speak to like my brother works at Department of Energy, and I've had talks to him about this. But you talk to anybody in that world, they'll go, "No, this is just bullshit. This conspiracy theory, this speculation, this doesn't exist, or else we'd have it." So go ahead.
But I feel like that's what's limiting us, right?
Yeah.
From being able to do this is when you, and thank God for people like Joe Rogan to be able to allow these conversations to occur on such a huge platform that's bigger than any mainstream media, quote unquote, today.
Yeah.
And so that's why we're able to talk about it. That's why we're hearing this, right? And I didn't walk away saying Terrence Howard is a genius and he's absolutely right. I just walk away thinking I got more questions, right? Because I personally am a huge fan of PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequencies. I'm a huge fan of grounding and earthing, which basically helps to stabilize our electrical world, right? So when he starts talking about all that kind of stuff, I'm like, well, that's my world. I agree with that because it's true, right? Yeah. I can measure these things. It's not that like I'm a huge fan of people or like bringing up the question when someone asks me about data. I like to throw it back at them to say, sure, there is data, right, on these things, but are you asking me that to have confirmation bias as to why you won't believe in it? Or are you asking me because you truly want to know what the data is? Because if you feel like you can only use something when you have proper data, then what about the stool that you're sitting on? What about the microphone that you're using? What about the food that you're getting from the store? Did you research where that came from and how much crap that it has in it? Chances are no. But there's going to be certain things that a person will say, well, no, there's not enough data in there.
Right.
Well, like, make it make sense, right? And that's what Terrence Howard is trying to do. Yeah. He's out there just saying, like, I've got these patents for a reason, like debunking the black hole theory. He's like, there is no void in this universe. There is no black hole, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got this video up, which I thought this was interesting too.
Yeah, I just putting this as visual in the background while you're talking. But yeah, I mean, that's what's impressive about him is he's putting his money where his mouth is. And that's what was impressive to me is, okay, this guy's really not, and that was kind of something I was going to hit on earlier is, these are all people walking the talk, whether you necessarily agree with them or anything, they are, authentic and chasing and trying to go for what they believe to be their truth and accurate and people exposing injustices on the conversation before, 50 Cent, Cowboys, these people are walking the talk who are not going along and enabling. And so kind of bringing that together too is why we highlighted them for people is we want to highlight people that are really trying to be interesting and innovators and authentic and have a high level of integrity and open-minded, in a lot of ways. But
and what's interesting about this topic with Terrence Howard is that it's only controversial because he is an actor, right? If this was, this underground physicist from a different country or whatever, we would all be thinking like, he's onto something, right? Like he might be actually onto something. But this is from a, award-winning actor. People think, oh, stay in your lane, but he's not. He's walking his walk, walking his talk. You know what I mean?
And that ties
This is
into
incredible.
this is a quick video just talking about how Neil deGrasse Tyson treated him before and after, right? So Terrence Howard does an event with Neil deGrasse Tyson, and
I think he invited him. He invited him on his show or something,
yeah,
right?
he invites him on a show. He loves him. Oh, you're an actor. We're just talking about stuff that's in your world, in your lane. It's all lovey-dovey, schmoozing. And then Neil deGrasse, he sends over, he's like, I'm serious about my, basically unified field theory and my approach to physics. And I think I have sort of the answer. He thinks he has the unified field answer, which is like the holy grail in physics. And it's the theory that brings all forces together and explains basically how nature exists, how it's created, all that. So it's like, no one's done it yet, but it's what every physicist and everyone, like, it's the final holy grail. And so Howard sends over his unified field theory essentially based on electromagnetics and geometry and what he breaks down, and I don't know all the specific technical side, but I think he says Neil deGrasse then continues to he says something really disrespectful at first. I wish I knew exactly what he said. I can pull it up again, but it's like something very dismissive, and then he just doesn't respond.
It just stops responding to him. Just completely stops responding to him.
And it shows you, like, hey, once you get in my world, like, fuck off. I'll be nice. We're talking about acting stuff and other cultural things. But once, like you said, no, bro, like, stay in your lane, right? Know your role. And at first, I mean, like myself, like a lot of people, and I saw friends who are like, I don't know how to feel about this. Like, this is either genius or crazy. Like, a lot of people don't know because it's a little over their head, and they're just like, I don't know exactly. But at first, there is a little sense of like, oh, Terrence Howard, the actor, wait, he's also like really knows his shit about geometry and all this and this whole other side to him. But like Joe, like, if you listen and if you give him the time and you actually have an open mind, you're like, well, this guy is really fucking pretty well versed on a lot of these concepts from what I know, and he's dropping names and dates that I'm pretty somewhat versed on. Heisenberg, all those people. He's dropping specific like early quantum like physics like key people where I'm like, all right, it sounds pretty legit, and clearly he can get fact checked if it's bullshit. And then he's talking about how much money he spent on it and how he's actually created these patents, and he's created these this company that's recreated the simulation, and he's working with high level physicists and people who agree with him on this theory but have the mathematics and background. So it's not just him, he's got a team of people who know their shit, who's helping bring his conceptual side to match sort of the technical side. Like, I don't know all the ins and outs of like the other one, like where he's recreating Saturn, but like if this is like it's legit, and he's showing Joe
that's amazing.
Saturn, like, and then it's matching current NASA photolights with a hexagon on the top and everything. This is the simulation kind of thing.
It is
like, yeah, that's pretty fucking impressive. I mean,
what's I think most impressive about that, yes, it's cool. Like what you're showing now on the screen is that, like, they showed that it basically recreated Saturn, almost, like apples to apples. And what's also, I think, the undertones behind all that is that proves this idea that it's not energy from the core going outward,
right?
It's energy from the outside coming, like
it's the torus
imploding in on itself,
yeah,
right? And so, and he explains it in a way that I thought made a lot of sense to me, which we think that the universe is like infinite. If you take the ocean, for instance, right, and everybody that's been to the ocean, they know that when a wave, like if there's a ripple that's created, those ripples go out until it hits something and then comes back in.
Right.
And that's what he explains as what's happening to all the planets, to all the stars, right? And so, yeah. So,
and this is the flower of life. I mean, this is when, for people out there who are familiar and have done their research on Eastern and ancient and esoteric concepts and principles, this has been talked about for thousands of years. It's this idea of the toroidal pattern, the flower of life. It's this ancient geometric pattern that, as Terrence is proving mathematically and through physics simulations, matches. This is the pattern that matches how they can pull off these simulations correctly, right? To where it is the same size and everything as Saturn. And And this has been talked about for thousands of years as essentially what's occurring in the human body and so many, things around us in nature. It's this energy flowing from the outward, as you see here, and then flowing down and then coming out. And of course, it looks very similar to what a lot of people think of as a black hole. So it's
He basically was saying where the two vortices meet is what other people are considering to be a black hole, but it's not. It's just where the two vortices meet.
Right. And the universe is absolutely, completely, and we know this now, but full of energy. And I mean, there's just so many things when people really understand current neuroscience and quantum physics. People don't really fully understand the implications of this shit yet. And I'm not trying to like overly reduce it or overly exaggerate it to make it like match some bias of like some new age thing, because you'll see that sometimes happen. But like, no, just like on its face, like understanding that 99.99999% of reality is actually empty space. But that space is what we're seeing now with 0 point energy. It's actually full of energy. You can pull from literally what we think is just nothingness around us, but it's actually teeming with energy. And that's what Tesla knew. That's what Terrence is pointing to. And that same force is what actually creates suns, and these suns then create planets. And as he was saying in his theory that, as Mercury is the most closest, or believe closest, like certain planets, as they get farther and farther away from the sun, then create the conditions for life to be created. Sort of this habitable zone, as we call the Goldilocks zone, right? It's not too hot, it's not too cold, but it has the right conditions for life to be created. Now you go ahead.
Yeah.
But just over the grand scale of our universe, you think of that in a time lapse, like you're seeing a plant time lapse, and it's moving and it's going. That's the same thing that's happening. We just see things and think so much in anthropomorphic terms, in terms of a human, but the universe, and if you believe there's intelligent design going on here, it doesn't think from the eyes of us. We actually have an extremely, extremely minuscule perspective and view on just, like he talked about, the electromagnetic spectrum. We only see a minuscule amount of it. And these concepts, we just throw labels on, like dark energy and dark matter. We don't really fucking know what they are. And that's a lot of times like our arrogance in science to be like, oh, because we put a label on it and because we know this, we can measure something is pulling. So dark matter is literally pulling together galaxies and planets. It's holding it together, or else centrifugal force would rip it apart, just like when you're on a swing, Swtt going around, eventually you'd fly off. The same would happen with planets. So dark matter is pretty heady shit, but like using gravitational lensing, they can shoot light through galaxies and see it refracting, and are able to actually then map it, and are able to now map that this stuff is holding together planets and universes. And then dark energy is literally expanding our universe at an exponential rate. Literally, it is once again, they don't know what it is, but most of our universe, they say, is dark energy, dark matter, and only like 4% is matter.
That's what he's saying is the ether.
That's right? Exactly, yeah. And he's saying there's the ether. And once again, man, when you not only his concepts, but if you get into other research that deals with consciousness and how much we don't really know about consciousness and how weird it is, and how, like when I was talking about neuroscience, what we're actually experiencing, when you look at like the delayed experiment, what your eye sees, what you hear, what you smell, all of these sensory things are actually happening at different times. It's very close to each other, but it's different times. And it all comes into your brain like a CPU, and then it puts it together, and then it recreates a visual reconstruction for your eyes.
Yep.
And so, you start to then hear these concepts like simulation theory, or living an illusion, or a Maya, as ancient Hinduism would talk about. And it starts to not sound as crazy now because science is starting to back it up. But that
you've heard the reticular activating system, right?
It sounds
the RAS. So if I remember this correctly, because I wrote about this in my book, that system in the brain is there to kind of make sense of all the things, right? Like, because like if you can really just take a step back and think about it for a minute, the amount of things that our eyes interpret, well, not even just our eyes, but our body interprets on a daily basis. What do you think ends up making it into our psyche? It's only the things that matter the most, so to speak, right? So reticular activating system, yeah. And so what it does is it kind of siphons off the most important things. For instance, if you are walking down the street, there's going to be the feeling of the road, the curb, the light changing, the wind blowing, the sound of a baby, this and that. But the only thing that matters to you via the RAS, the reticular activating system, the only thing that matters to you is that you're going to the store, right? And so if something got in your way that was going to be maybe life threatening, then highlight that. Okay. But nothing else matters. Now, somebody might call you while you're at the store. Maybe you went to go to a restaurant, you sat down. They might say, hey, bro, I saw you on the street. And you'd be like, really? And then it's like, oh, yeah, you were the person I saw you waving, but I didn't know that. Well, that now is like a re-download of that information because it was all there. It was all part of your reality. But the only things that matter is what the RAS system is actually allowing you to see. And so that, could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. Because if we're experiencing everything all at once, it'd be way too overwhelming.
Is that based off of thousands of years of our, primitive programming as hunter-gatherers to where you focus on what matters the most, and then if there's a saber-toothed tiger or something, and it makes complete sense, and you see how much it's been hijacked.
That's what I'm getting at. Right. That's what I'm getting at but it's also by design though, right? Because we would go crazy or go genius if we knew the alternative or if we could experience the alternative. It's way too much for us to try to sit there and experience all that in one day. So this is why you see sometimes people who are like really in their lane, they stay in their labs, they do this and that. They're not what do you call it? Like tapping into the RAS as much as someone else who's just living life. And
I'm curious, not to get too sidetracked, is there any correlation between like certain like schizophrenic or mental health issues that is their reticular activating system affected? So like they get more bandwidth than maybe I don't know. That'd be
it is affected. To be totally honest with you, I don't know how it's affected, and maybe it's affected differently for every person, but it does get affected for sure.
But it makes complete sense. I mean, and when you look at now, like social media or the battle over engagement and getting people's attention, a lot of that is sort of the battle over getting the reticular activating system, their RAS, getting that, like breaking news or a red dot or this sound. It's all these triggers to get you to sort of enter that fight or flight mode to be like, okay, I need to focus on this. Like this is life or death. When really it's like, no, it's fucking not. You're being lied to think that you're getting hijacked, you're getting hacked. They're using dopamine, they're using these fear hacks that they've, had shit ton of money spent on. We know with the social dilemma, like it's been proven out, like, no, we knew about this. We knew how to hack it. We work with experts in Las Vegas and gambling. We work with neuroscience experts to be like, how do we get their engagement? And a lot of it's just this false sense of, immediately feeling like you need to pay attention to this.
Well, I think this is why the powers that be don't want us to get involved in psychedelics.
Right.
Because psychedelics helps to kind of clear that slate.
Right.
Why is it that for the majority of people that take, certain psychedelics and certain substances, they experience similar things? Now, the conspiracy theorists out there would say, well, because there's enough of these stories that are out there so that, we hear these stories or we feel these images and we hear about these experiences from other people. And that's why it's in our conscious now. And that's why we're thinking that. Okay, sure. Maybe I won't say that that's not totally true. But when you can then say, okay, what about a person who lives in the jungle of the Amazon or in the deserts of Africa, and you have similar imagery to a person that lives in America, in New York City, upstate, like how is it that we have similar imagery? And it's because a lot of that stuff is removed when you're in a psychedelic state. Right. It's all kind of removed. So now you have a blank slate. And one of the things that Terrence Howard said, and I loved him for saying this, is that we are all connected.
Yeah.
We are all one.
He's definitely done psychedelics. I mean, I don't know if we talk about that, but it's very obvious that, and that's what Joe's like, look, man, I don't necessarily understand maybe all the technical stuff you're going down, but like like from the psychedelic shared experience we both had, I can relate to that. Like I've seen like, and I've never experienced it, but anyone who's a psychonaut, is it called? Or yeah, psychonaut. But somebody who has a lot of experience with psychedelics, but not only a lot with them, but also doing heavy doses, heroic doses, these kind of terms, you will see fractal geometry. You will see these patterns, as you're kind of hitting on, that you look at ancient archaeological sites, the Flower of Life, these sort of climatic patterns that exist at every certain frequency, that there is something built in to the very fabric of the nature of reality in a lot of ways. And I think they were trying to bring us awareness of that in the ancient past. We kind of lost it and it's coming back. But if Terrence can do it the right way, because once again, and I just posted it on our Simply Walk the Talk YouTube page for people to check out all the previous people who have come, because Terrence is standing on the shoulder of giants. I love it that he's doing his things, but he, and then he would say this too, you know, he's not the first person to say these kind of things. He's gotten this wisdom from, you know, his research. And if you scroll down to the bottom page, Killer Patterns and Secret Technology, this Y Files, which is a great YouTube channel, they really go into the whole history of all the various people that have existed in the past and the various inventions. And they do a great job of really bringing you the receipts and the research of footage, of patents, of all the things you'd want to see to verify that these people were legit, that they did exist and their machines did exist. And so at this point, this is something that, you know, I hope Terrence stays safe. When you really look at the stuff seriously, this is a multi-trillion-dollar industry you're threatening. And you're threatening the very foundations of science, but really more so you're threatening massive, massive economic interests who like the way things currently are done, petroleum-based propulsion, all these kind of things. And, you know, we'll leave it a little sizzler here. Whenever we get back on another interesting UFO update and things, this ties into that as well, and is why this is classified higher than nuclear weapons as the highest thing. These sort of the implications of what he's saying, of what they can mean for inventions and technology and basically abundant energy. And so I hope he stays safe, and I hope when he gets to a point where he's able to bring some of these patents to the masses, I mean, you got to be really careful about it, because they have ways of suppressing it, of shelving it, and in worst case, just taking out the inventors. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, the way I would recommend nowadays is like do it free, open, share the full, you know, open source type thing, all the patents and all that. Use publicity to cover your behind. I'm here for it, man. You know, if anything, I love that it's getting the conversation, you know, talking about this more. I think we're at a point where we need to have more conversations like this. We've got a lot of plateaus in conversations where people are like, well, what's the solution? I know it's all fucked up or this. It's like, okay, well, there are some serious solutions, but it might mean you have to accept some things you maybe thought were crazy, or, you know, open up your mind to some things that you thought, wait, so then I have to admit I've been lied to? You're like, yeah, but it's all good. I was too.
Well,
we move forward.
I'll leave you with this thought then, because I think you wrapped it up very nicely. But I can't let this go on without at least mentioning this, because no matter what you believe about, not you, Gordon, but like whatever anybody believes about Terrence Howard, if you are in the gaming world, or if you're a believer, if you utilize virtual reality, our friend Terrence Howard was one of the first ones to kind of to patent that. Loads of companies have since used his patent, and he's gotten nothing for it. But if you watch that episode, like we're hoping you do, you'll notice that he had to plan for that, even, you know, as well. So, like he showed on the episode, he showed the actual patent, how it was filed in his name, and then it showed all the major like Fortune 500 companies that have used that same patent.
It's like the mirror thing. I forget what it's called, like the mirror test. I forget the name of the patent, but yeah,
it's you could just look it up. It's because it wasn't called virtual reality. Yeah. They since called it virtual reality, but that was one that I thought was huge. And then another one was that that free energy. Do you call it a gun? Projector, you know, that the thing that he has, that it's like he had to file it as a gun so no one would use it, but actually that's going to be the thing that we use for rockets, apparently.
Yeah.
Again, like that that is fascinating. And then there's one final piece that I'll talk about. If you watch the episode, he shows how he added light to this thing that he created. I forget what he calls it. He calls it the is it called the Linux or the you know what I'm talking about? It's like that little thing, that linchpin.
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Uh,
He's showing the
yeah. So
the drones, the theoretical videos with the drones shooting. All that.
yeah, which was cool. But so with this linchpin, if I remember correctly, he shined a light on the linchpin, and it created this beautiful, like, psychedelic light that you would think that is out of a a movie or something. It's incredible. So all that being said, just go and watch it. Let us know your thoughts. If you like this kind of content and you want us to touch more on it, then please feel free to let us know your thoughts, and we'll try to do more around this. If you are kind of like, hey guys, stay in your lane, like you're trying to tell Terrence Howard to, then okay, we'll keep up with the fitness, health, and wellness stuff.
We have both. Yeah, we have the podcasts and guests that are on that. But I think it's, from the feedback in the past, people have liked it, and yeah, I think this is a great insights, and I think it was pretty useful for people. But we'll see. But I think honestly, it's an exciting time. We live in some very interesting times. I think you made some good points earlier too. As you're dealing, and as we touch on all this, I'm about to go play pickleball in 2 hours. Make sure to balance doing Josh's, exercise and various things. Like, have that good balance. And it's mind, body, spirit. And this is just sort of the mind stuff, dealing with what's being talked about. And I'm here for it, man. I think, look, they're preaching
We
the
have no
fire. They're
choice.
preaching the fire for a lot of the stuff on this. So if you do have skepticism, I came to all these topics and things we touch on with skepticism. Do your own research. We're huge advocates of critical thinking here. Don't just believe us. Go research yourself. Check out some of the videos we posted on the main Simply Walk the Talk page of people we like that are good channels that dive into the stuff deeper, and then balance it with whatever exercise. But yeah, this could be game changers. I mean, it really could. But talking about it helps. So
yeah,
we're just doing our part.
Cool, man.
Our brother.
Well, it was really good to catch up with you, Gordon. And for the people watching and listening, thanks for tuning in. And like I said, please feel free to reach out to us. Let us know your thoughts. And also, please feel free to share. I know that's so cliche to say nowadays. I mean it. We mean it, because that's the way that this is going to continue to happen. So if you don't want these long breaks again, then let us know what your thoughts are. Okay. And until next time, this is Josh signing out from Simply Walk the Talk. Peace.
Simply walk the talk. Walk the talk, talking facts. Move like me, but I move a little fast. Make my move, here to last. Fasten these seatbelts, I'm coming past. Take care of me, longevity. Hack my biology, better believe. Walking the talk, soul, mind, and body connected. Better come give us a listen.